Dear learners, I welcome you all again to this Module 7 of the MOOC course on Gender and the Media. This is the Unit 19 of the course and it has been named Advertising, Femininity and Commodification. In this particular unit, we shall try to discuss about the advertising media of mass communication, and we shall try to see how it is related or how it impacts the gender representation in the society. Advertising has long been a powerful tool for shaping societal values, norms, and expectations. Advertising communicates messages to the mass audience. It is a paid form of mass communication and it often influences consumer behavior and cultural trends. One of the significant aspects of advertising is how it portrays gender, as it can reinforce or challenge the existing gender stereotypes of the society. Over time, the depiction of gender in advertising has evolved. It has been reflecting or pushing against the social changes that are occurring in the wider society. Representation of gender in advertisements, they provide a powerful model of behavior to imitate for the society. You might have often come across the masculine images which are typically portrayed as conveying power, strength, athleticism, whereas the female images are often seen as portraying beauty, submissiveness, nurturance, and cooperation. Parents and early caregivers, they often instill the behavioral norms of gender roles from childhood itself. The different other sections of the society such as the peers, mass media, etc., they also play a role in influencing these cultural norms. So these internalized attitudes, they also and behavioral expectations about maleness and femaleness is often described as gender by the social scientists. The biological differences in male and female are referred to by social scientists as sex. The differences between these two ideas, between what is innate and what is learned, these are often very helpful in studying masculinity and femininity. So when we take a look at the historical context of advertising, we can see that in the earlier decades, advertising predominantly depicted the rigid gender roles. As we have discussed, they often presented men and women in stereotypical ways. In the 20th century, they are also tended to portray women as homemakers, caregivers, or as sexualized objects, while men are shown as strong, assertive, and dominant figures. So these depictions, they served to reinforce traditional gender norms. It influenced how people thought about masculinity and femininity. So advertisers knew that these portrayals could resonate deeply with their audiences, with their consumers. And what happened? In turn, it reinforced what society expected from each gender. So when we talk about gender representation in advertising, we can have a look at the stereotypical representation, which I have already discussed. The gender stereotypes in advertising are typically confined to women, given the role that emphasized domesticity, beauty, and nurturing qualities, and men were often shown as breadwinners, leaders, or adventurers. So these portrayals, they worked to enforce traditional values and define how an individual should look, how he or she should behave or aspire, or they should based on their own gender. For example, women were often marketed products related to beauty, cleaning, and childcare, while men were often targeted for products which are related to power, success, adventure, etc. So the issue of gender portrayal runs much deeper than mere use of the terms he or she, or the use of the color like blue and pink. Another aspect is the sexualization of women. A significant and problematic trend in advertising has been the sexualization of women. Advertisements often featured women in sexually suggestive poses and clothings. They focused on their appearances rather than on their ability or roles in the society. So this form of advertising, they objectifies women. They reduce their identity to their looks, which can perpetuate unrealistic beauty standards, and it may contribute to body image issues. In adulthood, the sexuality of mature women is a central focus. So advertisements, as you can see here in your slides, this particular image, it exaggerates sexuality by the posture of the women. She is sitting, of course, in a model's pose to display the clothing, the shoes and the bags in a very eye-catching and provocative manner. So advertisings must break through this clutter of the competition and draw the reader's attention. The somewhat unusual pose here, it may serve that purpose, but it also serves to reinforce the idea that women are and must be sexual creatures in order to attract attention. So another common pose for women is smiling at the camera, as you can see in your slides here in the images. So these smiles are exaggerated and much wider than we can see in advertising depicting men. So it suggests the different emotional states as appropriate as feminine and masculine expressions. So in comparison, we often come across the poses and facial expressions of men in different ads as unsmiling or dominating. So here in your slides, you can see that men are not smiling. They are intensely serious and domineer as portrayed in the advertisements. So let us have a look at the rise of feminist and gender equal advertising in the later parts. So over the past decades, the representation of gender in advertising has become more complex and diverse. So advertisers have increasingly attempted to break free from old stereotypes. Now they are trying to represent women in a wider range of roles, as professional, independent, assertive or empowered. Similarly, the portrayal of men have also evolved. So advertisers are beginning to show men as more emotionally expressive, nurturing and involved in family life. So they are trying to challenge the traditional idea of men as stoic, unemotional breadwinners. Although there have been some recent improvements, certain advertisements still perpetuate the negative gender stereotypes, which reinforce traditional roles and expectations from women. So the persistence of such portrayals, they highlight the ongoing need for continued awareness and efforts to challenge and reshape gender representation in advertising. The impact of changing social norms. The changing social attitudes, particularly with the rise of feminism and the LGBTQ+ movements, they have influenced how gender is depicted in advertising. Modern campaigns are often more inclusive. They feature people of various gender identities, sexual orientations, and non-traditional gender expressions. So some brands have embraced gender-neutral or non-binary representations. They are moving beyond the simplistic binary of male and female. So today, many advertisers are focused on portraying a wider variety of gender experiences. So this includes showcasing of women in leadership positions. They portray men as caregivers and represent diverse family structures. So brands are also increasingly showing women and men in various races, various body types and abilities, trying to become more body positive. They are also trying to be inclusive of various views of beauty and success. So this shift not only reflect changes in the societal attitude but also aim to appeal to a broader, more diverse consumer base. So what are the challenges in gender representation in advertising? Despite the progress made in advertising, there are challenges which still remain to be achieved. For example, the over-sexualization of women still persists in some industry, particularly in the beauty and the fashion advertising. While there has been a push for more diverse portrayal, many advertisements still, try to portray the stereotypical images of masculinity and femininity. Another challenge is the commercial pressure to maintain certain gendered representations that advertisers believe will appeal to target audiences. For example, products such as cars, tools, electronic devices, they often, go towards hyper masculine imagery. While they tend to not acknowledge much the growing number of women in these markets. Now let us have a look at the role of advertising in shaping societal norms and identities. Advertising often, mirrors the values, the trends and cultural shifts occurring in the society. So hence they are also referred to as the mirror of the society. For example, during the times of economic prosperity, advertisements emphasized luxury, success, individualism, while in times of economic downturn, advertisements were highlighting frugality, togetherness and resilience. So whatever was going on in the society was reflected in the advertisements of that particular period. So they were mirroring the societal values. So advertising both reflects and amplifies the cultural environment and provides insight into what is considered desirable or aspirational at any given time. Second point is reinforcing social norms. So advertising has played a significant role in reinforcing social norms, particularly in areas such as gender roles, family structures, beauty standards, and class distinctions. So this repeated messaging advertisements can reinforce what is seen as normal behavior or what is considered attractive or what roles individuals should play in the society. Then let us talk about construction of identities. So advertising helps to shape individuals and collective identities by promoting specific ideals about beauty, success, happiness, and lifestyle. Through aspirational messaging, advertisements invite consumers to envision themselves as part of a particular lifestyle. For example, campaigns that associate specific brands with success and attractiveness can lead people to define themselves through the consumption of these particular products. So this can be seen in the marketing of beauty products, fashion, and even automobiles. Then again, there are points such as challenging the redefining norms. So over time, advertising has become a platform for challenging traditional norms. As societal values evolved, advertisements increasingly promoted messages of inclusion, diversity, and empowerment. For example, campaigns in the recent years have embraced body positivity, racial diversity, and gender equality, and they are trying to challenge the outdated representation of beauty and success by including people from different body types, racial diversity, various races, and different genders. For example, here you can see in the images brands like Dove with its beauty campaign called Real Beauty, and Nike, that sports brand, with its endorsement of female athletes and social justice movements. They are trying to push the boundaries in presenting more diverse, more realistic and empowering images of identity. So advertising not only shapes societal norms but also drives consumer behavior and creates trends. Through careful segmentation and targeting, advertising influences what people buy, how they live, and what they value. For example, the rise of social media influencers and digital marketing, it has allowed advertisers to shape trends around lifestyle choices, fashion, food, technology, and even political views. The desire to imitate the influencers or the desire to imitate the celebrities which are featured in different advertisements. So these can lead to widespread adoption of specific behaviors or lifestyles. Now about globalization and cultural shifts. Globalization and cultural shifts. In an increasingly interconnected world, advertising has a global reach, which means it plays a role in shaping cross-cultural norms and identities. As the brands expand beyond the national borders, they must navigate the cultural differences while they are promoting the universal messages. So advertising also serves as a tool for social change by bringing awareness and pressing issues of mobilizing support to social causes, campaigns, such as environmental sustainability, LGBTQ plus rights, mental health, gender equality, among others. Now let us have a look at the terms such as femininity. When we are talking about femininity, it basically refers to the qualities, behaviors and roles that a society considers appropriate for women and girls. It is a socially and culturally constructed concept that varies across different cultures and time periods. Traditionally, femininity has been associated with traits such as gentleness, nurturing, passivity, empathy, being sensitive and having elegance. So these characteristics have often been idealized in women. So it influenced expectations for how they should behave, how they should look, or how they should, relate to others. However, the concept of femininity is not fixed, and over time it has evolved as societal norms changed. Today, femininity can encompass a wide range of expressions and traits such as strength and assertiveness to compassion and creativity. So it is also recognized that femininity, like masculinity, is not limited to one gender, and individuals of all genders may embody various aspects of femininity in different ways. So when we are talking about commodification, it refers to the process by which something that is not traditionally seen as a commodity, such as an idea, a service, a cultural practice, or even an individual identity, becomes treated as a product that can be bought, sold, or traded. So in other words, commodification involves turning something into a commodity, which is a good or service that can be produced for exchange in the market. So this concept is often used in critical discussions to describe how various aspects of human life, culture, and even personal relationships are transformed into marketable items. So when we are talking about commodification of gender and identity in advertising and media, aspects of gender identity, body image, or beauty can be commodified when they are marketed to consumers as ideals or standards to be attained through the purchase of certain products like beauty products, certain clothes, bags, accessories, or certain services. So commodification often raises concerns, particularly around issues like exploitation, cultural appropriation, or the reduction of human experience to something that is financially valued rather than intrinsically meaningful. So when we are talking about post-feminism, so it is a concept that refers to the idea or movement that emerges after or as a reaction to the traditional feminism. So it is characterized by a belief that the goals of feminism, such as gender equality, women's rights, etc., they have largely been achieved and are no longer as relevant in the contemporary society. So in this view, post-feminism suggests that the need for a feminist movement has lessened and that women in particular have gained equal opportunities and freedom. However, post-feminism is not a single unified ideology, but it is rather a complex, evolving set of perspectives that can vary in meaning and interpretation. So post-feminism often includes a reaction against certain aspects of feminism, particularly the more radical and activist trends. It can involve critics of feminism as outdated, too aggressive, or too larger, not longer necessary. So it argues against gender equality. A core feature of post-feminism is the focus on individual choice and empowerment, particularly for women. Post-feminism can sometimes dismiss or critique older feminist struggles such as challenging patriarchal institutions by focusing instead on personal or cultural empowerment. While some post-feminists' perspectives maintain a narrow focus on mainstream white middle-class women's issues, other incorporates ideals of intersectionality. The intersectionality basically refers to the recognition of gender, race, class, sexuality and other factors which intersect and shape a woman's experiences. So post-feminism in this sense may acknowledge the complexity of identities and advocate for women to exercise agency in navigating the social systems that affect them. Now let us have a look at the theoretical frameworks for understanding femininity in advertising. For that, let us have a look at the feminist theory and advertising. Feminist theory offers critical insights into the way advertising functions within a society, particularly in how it shapes the gender roles, how it reinforces stereotypes, and how it perpetuates the power dynamics. So far in the previous modules, you have come across the various theories, feminist theories, and how it has, affected the study of gender roles in the society. So here we'll just try to have a, have a follow-up from those lessons and try to look it into advertisement. Through the lens of feminism, advertising is seen as more than just a tool of promoting products. It is a significant cultural force that influences societal norms. It constructs identities and impacts women's self-perceptions. So feminist critics of advertising highlights how it often objectifies women, marginalizes alternative gender identities, and promotes unrealistic standards, while also acknowledging the potential for advertising to challenge the traditional gender norms and empower women. So the objectification of women comes into fore in here. One of the most prominent feminist critics of advertising is the tendency of advertisement to objectify women. So objectification refers to treating an individual, especially women, as an object to be looked at and used, rather than as a human being with agency and subjectivity. Advertising often reduces women to their physical appearances, using their bodies as marketing tools to sell products. So this process dehumanizes women and limits their role to being objects of desire and consumption. For example, advertisement for products such as beauty products, fashion industry, and even cars, they may feature women in sexually suggestive poses or revealing clothing with little attention paid to their personality, capabilities, or individuality. So this portrayal reinforces the idea that a woman's worth is tied to her appearance. So it contributes to unrealistic beauty standards and body image issues as well. So feminist theorists like Laura Mulvey, in her influential work on the male gaze, she has argued that mainstream media, including advertising, positions women as passive subjects who are objectified for the pleasure of a male viewer. So here we are talking about the male gaze. When we are talking about gender stereotyping and reinforcement of traditional roles, the feminist theory also critiques the way advertising often perpetuates rigid gender roles, how it reinforces traditional norms of masculinity and femininity. For many decades, advertising presented women in domestic and nurturing roles, while men were depicted in positions of power and success. So advertising has evolved to include more complex representation of women, with the emphasis on traditional gender roles remain a recurring theme at times. So women continue to be heavily marketed beauty products, household goods, and family-related items, while men are often targeted with products that promote power and success. Feminist scholars have also highlighted how advertising commodifies gender identities and seeks to profit from both the traditional and evolving representation of women. So this commodification is seen in a way gender is marketed as a product to be consumed or sold or performed. For instance, beauty ads sell an idealized version of femininity by presenting specific standards of beauty, such as slimness, smooth skin, youth, etc., as an aspirational and attainable through the purchase of this particular products. The feminist theory also acknowledges how certain advertisements have sought to challenge and subvert the traditional representation of women by promoting empowerment messages. Brands like Dove have also used feminist rhetoric to promote body positivity and self-acceptance. They have celebrated women of different sizes, shapes, and ethnicities. This shift towards promoting women's empowerment is seen as an effort to reclaim femininity and provide more diverse representations. Some critics also argue that these empowerment ads often still maintain a consumerist agenda where empowerment is linked to the purchase of products. So when we talk about intersectionality in feminist advertising critics, Feminist critics of advertising have become more nuanced in recent years with the rise of intersectional feminism. It recognizes that women's experiences are shaped by multiple factors, including race, class, sexuality, age, and ability. Intersectionality has influenced feminists' thought about advertising by highlighting how different sexual identities intersect to affect how women are represented and marketed. For example, advertising has historically been overwhelmingly white and Eurocentric, and it's in its depiction of beauty standards. So women of color, LGBTQ plus sections, then women of various socioeconomic backgrounds, they have often been excluded or misrepresented in the mainstream ads. So there has been a push in the recent years for more inclusive representations. So brands like Fenty Beauty by Rihanna, they have embraced a wider range of skin tones in their marketing. They are challenging the conventional standards of beauty that often excluded non-white women. The women of color are getting, included with these campaigns. So campaigns that reflect LGBTQ plus identities or portray women with disabilities are gaining visibility. Despite the challenges, the feminist theory recognizes the potential for advertising to be a space for subverting traditional gender norms and empowering individuals. Feminist advertising doesn't just focus on the representation of women in a more progressive way, it also calls for a rethinking of advertising practices that empower consumers through authenticity and inclusivity. So examples of feminist-inspired advertising include campaigns that feature diverse female voices, promote gender equality, challenge harmful beauty standards, and they take a stand on social justice issues. For example, brands like Always, with their Like a Girl campaign, have been advertising to challenge the negative connotations associated with the phrase like a girl, and they are trying to promote self-confidence in young women. Then brands like Nike and Adidas, they have used their platforms to support female athletes and women's rights. They are trying to showcase women in powerful non-traditional roles by challenging stereotypes. Now let us have a look at the post-feminist theory and advertising. Post-feminist theory emerges as a reaction to and development of feminist thought, as we have discussed a little bit earlier in this particular lecture. So in context to cultural production, media and advertising, for post-feminist theory emerges as a reaction. So it is often associated with the notion that while feminist goals have made significant strides, there is an increasing belief that the fight for equality is over, or at least the feminism is no longer necessary. So in the realm of advertising, post-feminist theory offers a nuanced view of how gender roles, particularly those related to women, are portrayed and consumed in contemporary society. Post-feminism is closely tied to the shift in how women and gender roles are depicted in the media. As a cultural and ideological movement, post-feminism acknowledges the progress achieved by feminist movements, particularly in the areas of gender equality, representation, and women's rights. So it also suggests that feminism's time has passed and that contemporary women have greater autonomy, independence, and freedom to make individual choices. In advertising, this is often reflected as the portrayal of women as empowered, self-confident, and in control of their lives, while at the same time, it still conforms to the traditional ideals of beauty and femininity. So while post-feminist advertising does not necessarily reject feminist progress, it may shift their focus from collective political struggle to individual choices and personal empowerment, which is often commodified in ways that aligns with the consumer culture. So regarding empowerment and commodification, what does post-feminist advertising suggest? So one of the key features of post-feminist theory in advertising is the emphasis on empowerment. Many advertisements in the post-feminist era depict women as strong, confident, and capable of balancing career, family, and personal ambitions. For instance, modern campaigns often show women in traditionally male-dominated fields, exercising sexual freedom and enjoying independence, reflecting the image of women who have arrived at a point of equality. However, this empowered frame is often, framed within the consumerist context, which is a major point of critique. Critics argue that the empowerment depicted in a post-feminist advertising is often shallow or superficial, as it is closely linked to the purchase of a particular product that promises to enhance a woman's lives, be it a beauty product or a fashion product or a service. So this empowerment is commodified. It commodifies a woman's success, beauty and confidence. These are presented as something that can be achieved, that can be bought, through consumption, rather than as a part of a broader social or structural changes. For example, the beauty and fashion advertisements that claim to empower women, they often do so by promoting the idea that women can take control of their image, but the message is entangled with the expectation that they must buy a certain product to achieve this particular autonomy. So this creates a tension within post-feminist advertising. While women are depicted as empowered, they are still primarily presented as a consumer whose self-worth is tied to the external appearance and material choices. So the beauty industry under the post-feminist paradigm presents a complicated narrative. On the one hand, it celebrates the idea of empowerment, autonomy and self-expression for women, and on the other hand, it commodifies beauty, turning empowerment as a product that can be bought, sold or consumed. I hope all these discussions that we have done in this particular lecture would provide a platform to you to understand advertising and its role in understanding the gender roles and gender representation in the society.